I would like to share with you some of the knowledge and personal experience about burnout. I have been through burnout. Because of that, I became interested in learning more about it from scientific publication, books, podcasts, vlogs, formal and informal personal interviews, and my own experience. This search and introspection has led to new and fresh way of thinking about, and an approach to burnout.
The content presented is for educational purposes. It leverages on material that is published, my experiences, and my own hypothesis. In no way am I suggesting or implying a solution to the complex problem and process of burnout. You would find in this exposition two contributions on my own. The first one is the playwork curve, that has allowed me to think about burnout in mathematical terms. I will not be discussing any mathematics here. The second one is the visualization of a definition of resilience. I hope the viewers and listeners derive some benefit from this discourse.
Actionable Lessons from the Trenches, and Other Dark Places. By Adrian Harkin Valdivia.
Health is defined by the World Health Organization as the well-being in the psychological, the social, and the physical spheres. The three are interacting, overlapping and dynamic.
If well-being could be plotted on the y-axis, then play could be on the x-axis and the correlation could be a bell curve. Where if play is too little or too much, then well-being drops. Therefore, there is a moderation range where well-being will be maximal. Following the train of thought, work can also be plotted on the same graph in the inverse of play. I will refer to this graph, from here forward, as the playwork curve, or PWC.
In the ideal of circumstances, the amount of play and the amount of work would be kept up, at the crest of the PWC to achieve maximum well-being.
It seems that the play and work needles can swing a larger distance and still keep a narrower, but elevated level of well-being. Observe that the amount of play and work that any person needs is variable from day to day, from age to age, from circumstances to circumstances, that are, each, so individual. At this point, the important information to grasp here, is the general concept and the implications of the play-work curve.
I will further hypothesize that, it is at the crest on the PWC where it is easier to find joy, and contentment, and gratefulness. Obviously not necessarily so, but it certainly helps to maintain that higher level of well-being. It could even be thought of as a virtuous cycle, where joy, contentment and gratefulness help, in turn, keep the crest of the curve high and help keep the needles stay up, sustaining well-being further.
A word about play. Play, it's difficult to define. Here, we're not going to dwell in the definition. We all know play when we have it or see it. There are two main types of play, active and passive. In general, we should try to spend about equal amounts in each one. Obviously, the quality and quantity of play is variable according to multiple individual factors. Frequently, for most of us, and hopefully most of the time, work has an element of play built in. Samples of active play include direct social play, physical play, inventive play, crafting, problem solving, among others. Some examples of passive play include watching TV or sports, or listening to music, or some participations in social media.
When work time increases, necessarily, the playtime decreases. We can all endure short, limited episodes of this state. But when this state is prolonged, then the recipe for burnout has been achieved. We don't get burnout by short episodes of the state. It is the prolonged period of high work and low play that will lead to burnout. Essentially, with this situation lasting long enough, anybody and everybody will reach a burnout point. We all have it.
But, there are some characteristics that may make a person more susceptible to burnout, such as an individual with a strong sense of service and duty, a person that is driven, competent, engaged, empathetic, sympathetic, caring, and diligent, seems to be at higher risk. Interestingly, those descriptors are the ones that companies would like to see in the employees they want to keep. Yet, those individuals are more vulnerable. The formula is more complex, and includes environmental factors such as being objectivized, suppressed, employees with challenges in other facets of life such as family or personal health. All these elements and risk factors are also variable from time to time.
I feel that the prolonged separation of the needles of the PWC are important in burnout genesis. Additional elements include poor boundary setting, the many times silent but insidious task creep, difficulty of the individual saying no, difficulty setting boundaries, not setting goals a priori, not having in mind a workload goal ahead of time, not pacing oneself, not having a coping strategy. Also, having high load of difficult personal interactions with colleagues, patients, or customers. May include things like chronic pain, unkind, invalidating people, demanding, distracting, backstabbing, drug-seeking behaviors, conversion disorders, borderline personality, among many, many others. In looking at this list, you should be able to see the importance of planning ahead.
Additional important risk factors include not having enough time alone, not doing what's fun, not having hobbies, having the unmet expectations that the employer is monitoring the employee's workload, and having suboptimal support, among others.
An interesting extension of the PWC is a new way of visualizing what resilience is. In this paradigm, resilience is defined as the time it takes for burnout symptoms to begin and escalate, from the point of separation of the play-work needles. In this definition, resilience includes the time to recovery from being burnout to the point optimum of play and work. The onset of burnout takes time, and the recovery from burnout can be 1 to 2 times longer. Definitely, a single vacation will not reverse it.
So, if resilience is the time from needle splaying to the extreme to the onset of burnout symptoms, and then back to recovery, then resilience training should include recognition of symptoms and the strategies to recover back to the well-being point optimum. Both symptom recognition and deployment of strategies for recovery, as fast as possible. More importantly, resilience training should focus on the prevention of burnout.
Prevention is the best medicine.
Okay, let's play an exercise here. What would this state be? Where work is low and play is high, also lowering well-being. Vacation. How long could you tolerate this state? I think most people would have had enough vacation between 8 and 16 days straight, after which similar symptoms of burnout began to appear.
Now, what is this other state? In this state work and play are low, then dropping the well-being. This would be a state of a disability, a lot of people in jail, and even some people in retirement.
Alright, so what are some of the symptoms and consequences of burnout? People that are in burnout experience to some degree or another some of these symptoms and consequences: cynicism, sarcasm, feeling apathetic, disinterest, disengagement, anhedonia, emotional volatility and explosivity, difficulty controlling anger, guilt feelings, fearfulness, feeling isolated, increased risk of divorce, increased risk of suicide, decreased attention, decreased self-confidence, decreased memory, decreased mental flexibility, decreased mental stamina, all of which can lead and aggravate the emotional, social, and physical deconditioning.
There is some scientific evidence to show that burnout can lead to increased risk of errors, decreased job performance, reduced self-care. Also, feeling anxious, insecure, devalued, having sleeping problems, venturing into unsafe escapes, not keeping professionally up to date. All these effects of burnout can also feed on themselves, inducing a vicious cycle.
If we plot the quality of the decision-making against the emotional state of the individual, we see how at the extremes of the emotional state, low or high, the quality of the decision-making decreases. I would anticipate a burnout individual to be in a low emotional state, leading to an increased risk of lower quality of decision-making, if not vulnerability.
The next several slides are an overview exposition of prevention and recovery from burnout. Most likely, one began employment with a strong personal and professional sense of purpose and meaning. If these have faded or decreased, it is important to make motions to find purpose and meaning again. Once in burnout, there may be a personal tendency to have negative self-talk, when a positive self-talk and self-encouragement is going to be much more productive and nourishing. It is most prudent to develop stress management and mindfulness skills ahead or early. That way, they can be used for coping, prevention, as well as for recovery. Developing human relations and self-control skills will only increase the fortitude against burnout. Taking care of the body and mind by having an A-priority daily workout schedule is very advantageous too, if not a positive multiplier.
Being burnout aggravates or induces a sense of jeopardy, of potential risk. Activating, so, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze responses. It is important to dedicate some time, maybe one day every 2 weeks, to address vulnerable points, which may include personal investments, ongoing education, contracts, retirement plans, insurance situations, etc. When it comes to burnout, failing to plan is planning to fail. Plan your scheduled playtime, which may be every day, every week, or every 2 weeks, or once a month, or all of the prior. It will depend on your own needs. I find it valuable to have a training program for partners and spouses so that they can be attentive and better prepared for detecting burnout, as well as having a support group or even a private hotline to get help.
It is imperative that the employee know the amount of work time and playtime that they need to have. Many times this is difficult to know without exposure and experience. There is some information on what the workload for a physician should look like on average, such as from the MGMA, or the like. That would be a place to start, as both the employer and employee figure out their limits, boundaries, goals, missions, opportunities, tolerances, strengths and weaknesses.
Regarding technology. Technology is nothing but a rapidly evolving tool, a type of powerful, fast-paced wrench. Many times due to its rapid development, new areas of uncertainty and challenges are created. But, technology is here to stay. It's most useful if embraced. Best seen as new opportunities. I have come to believe that not being technology savvy is actually a professional disability. History shows that when reading and writing was being planned to be introduced to the population at large, or when the printing press was going to make knowledge easier to spread, there were detractors and opponents. In reality, everybody, the clinicians, the employees, the computer guys, are all trying to figure this out. It is everybody. We are on this road together.
In this world with ever-increasing complexities, the approaches and habits of yesterday will not be sufficient, and may become barriers to progress, to adapting to the challenges ahead. We will need to continuously shed some of the old ways, as we embrace, or are absorbed into the new ways. Increasing complexity means that we need to develop faster adaptation skills and prepare with certain redundancies that may decrease efficiency today, but are needed to have the flexibility and survivability in, and for the future. Too tight of an operation, is a fragile operation. Paraphrasing Dr. Viktor Frankl, our first freedom is the freedom to choose our attitude.
I have observed, including in myself, that burnout-prone individuals may have difficulties setting boundaries. I think it is important to learn to set boundaries in an effective and healthy way, to learn to say no without fear and without guilt. This will probably take some thinking, and offline practice, so that when boundaries are needed to be set, the person has the emotional and cognitive skills to be able to calmly do so. I think it is imperative that the employers have monitoring systems, and that supervisors know what the workload on the employee is, and what the appropriateness of the load is. Obviously, the employer doesn't want the load to be too light, but also it should not be too heavy. Task creep can come in very slowly and quietly. When you are watching your children grow, it is difficult to perceive the smaller chunks of growth progress, but it becomes obvious when a big chunk has already occurred. In the case of burnout prevention, that approach is utterly inadequate. Any farmer would know not to overload the ox. As a worker, set your own non-negotiable play appointments, such as dinner with your partner, your alone time, going to the movies, workout, etc.
It is critical to respect the worker's time off. During their vacation time, email and text messages will not be answered, nor should vacation be a banking or storage of tasks to be done upon return from vacation. So that when coming back, there is an even bigger and painful pile of tasks to than before. This is not healthy. The employer must figure out a way of performing and not accumulating those tasks, while the employee is on vacation. Plan to play every day. These play periods do not have to be long, but they must exist. Even simple things such as dancing for a few seconds could help. It is also about a playful state of mind.
Some daily key strategies include: smile, 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 walk fast. People that are depressed walk slow. Smiling and walking faster can be antidotes to depression and burnout. Greet people, be curious about the people you run into, and put that phone away. I present you a rule of threes that goes as follows: write the 3 things that went well today, write your 3 play goals for tomorrow, and write the 3 work goals for tomorrow. Be curious, be inventive, be creative, reward inventiveness and creativeness. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Be your own fierce advocate, be your employees' first and fierce advocate. Take daily micro vacations.
Some key ways of increasing your personal effectiveness include the Pomodoro technique. where you work for 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. Then repeat. Parkinson's law, that paraphrased, states that if you do not set a time limit to a task, then it will take a whole lot longer to complete. For every task, set a deadline. The Pareto principle, which is essentially the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your effort produces 80% of your results. Plan and prioritize your tasks. The important and urgent comes first. And your meetings will be shorter and more productive if they are performed standing up rather than sitting down.
Some books that I suggest include The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Emotional Intelligence, Getting to Yes with Yourself, and Play, by Dr. Stuart Brown. And also, Every Day, Don't Forget to Dance, Listen to Music, Work Out, Study, Invent, and Reinvent.
This is the final summary slide. Here is the play-work curve, and the relationship to well-being, showing that keeping play and work needles at the moderate levels will help catapult your joy and contentment, your purpose and meaning, and all strengthened by boundaries and kindness.
Yes, this may work for you. Balance your work and your play. Work. Play. Repeat. Every day.
Nature is progressive.